Joining us now is Ann Coulter, the best-selling author of In Trump We Trust and many other bestsellers. Ann, thanks for being with us here on the Howie Carr Show.
Good to talk to you, Howie Carr.
Well, listen, I want to ask you here, I mentioned Michael Daly in the Daily Beast. Did you see this column late last week?
No.
And were it not for all the innocent souls who have been and likely will be hurt by Hurricane Irma, you might see poetic justice in homes owned by President Trump and billionaire David Koch and commentators Rush Limbaugh and Ann Coulter being battered by a storm made the most powerful ever recorded in the Atlantic with a boost from warmer water and moister air. In other words, Ann, he was rooting for your place and everybody else's place in Palm Beach to get taken out.
Yeah, actually, thank you. You reminded me of a tweet I need to send out because I hear that my good friend Bill Maher said the same thing to his audience on Friday night, to which they all hooted. Well, it looks like God is watching over us once again.
And you know this guy, Michael Daly, he's the one who got fired from the New York Daily News way back in the early 1980s for totally making up a column about Northern Ireland. Totally making it up. He was called out by the British military, and he was fired.
Well, a lot of liberals have been caught making up stories. And they complain about the Catholic Church. These guys are never... what's his name? That Barnacle guy.
Yeah, Mike Barnacle.
Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Yeah.
They never. This does not end a journalistic career.
Brian Williams
making stories up.
Yeah,
let's move to the next newspaper.
So, do you still are you know the title of your latest bestseller, In Trump We Trust?
In Trump We Trust, E Pluribus Awesome, which for some reason you cannot get straight, Howie Carr. Do
you still trust Trump, though? That's what I'm saying after the latest developments with DACA.
Well, I must say, on the evening of November 8th, I thought, okay, that's it. My work is done. I can kick back. I can travel. I can do whatever I want. We have the Emperor God installed in the White House. It turns out it's much more of a transactional presidency, Howie. You wake up every morning thinking, what are we going to have to hold his feet to the fire now? I mean, no, this DACA thing, I want to fly to Washington and hold his head under the water until the bubbles stop. But it's not like he hasn't done dumb things before. I mean, for one thing, the idea that anyone could taunt us for this is preposterous. Who else were we going to vote for? Some Rubio supporter was claiming on Twitter when I had an impertinent Trump tweet about his DACA tweets, said, "Oh well, you know, yeah, we all knew he was a fraud." Well, okay, but all the other candidates promised to pass DACA. All the other candidates promised not to build a wall. So the one guy who said he was going to do the stuff we wanted, of course that's the one you support. I mean, it seems, I was asked by Miami Herald reporter before In Trump We Trust came out, back when everyone except us thought Trump was going to lose, and he said, "Well, this book is kind of it has a very short shelf life. November 8th is kind of over." And even then, I mean, I always thought Trump had a 60% chance of winning, and I never really wavered in that. But that leaves a pretty big chance that it's the end of the country. So I had to contemplate what I would do then, and the book. And I said to him, even then, look, if Hillary wins, the country is over, so I don't care. But on the other hand, any politician for the remaining twilight days of the country, any politician who wants a winning platform, this is it. This is the roadmap. Other people can pick this up. I mean, we can run Chris Kobach, Stephen Miller, if not in 2020, then in 2024. All the issues are there, and it's going to be a more exhausting presidency for people like you and me, Howie.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of Chris Kobach, did you see New Hampshire? It came out last week that there apparently were 5,300 people who voted on Election Day, same-day registration, who have never re-registered, who have never gotten New Hampshire driver's licenses. So they're apparently...
Or registered their cars. And did you see what the response of the New Hampshire congressional delegation, which is two Democratic
congressmen and 2 Democratic senators. You see what their response was to?
Well, I saw what some liberals responded. What did they respond?
Well, the Democrat Secretary of State Bill Gardner, who's really a straight arrow, for a Democrat. He's on Kobach's commission, and so when the commission basically found out, or at their behest, they discovered that there was all this voter fraud. They said, "Well, Secretary of State Gardner is a good Democrat. You'd better resign from that commission." Talk about chutzpah. I mean, the senator Maggie Hassan, she won by 1,000 votes and over Kelly Ayotte, who was nothing to write home about. But still, I mean, how dare you say that you should be fired from the commission because you discovered this voter fraud?
Well, I think cleverer response, though doesn't persuade me. In fact, it makes me enraged for a completely separate reason. Was in the Washington Post claiming, no, this is all college students. Well, okay.
Yeah, what does
college
it mean? Yeah.
Students shouldn't be voting in states where they don't live. They're not going to change their driver's license. They're not going to change their car registration. I mean, these are the sorts of things that can be overlooked. And by the way, you have 6 months to do it. The commission looked back to see have they done it, nearly a year later, and they still hadn't changed vehicle registrations or driver's licenses. And it was more than 5,000 of them, and she won by only 1,000 votes. So even if half of them were legitimate. But no, let's get back to college students being able to vote in states where they don't live. No, that's outrageous. You're there for a few years. Did you go to school in state?
I claimed I was an in-state resident in North Carolina, but I
okay, we won't get into that.
Yeah.
But I never changed my registration. I wasn't a resident of New York or a resident of Michigan. It's outrageous. These college kids, plus which, third outrage here, college kids shouldn't be voting. Just to get, the result of 13 years of Chinese-style brainwashing, bus them to the polls. I don't think that people should be able to vote until they're 30.
How about letting women vote, Ann? You've come out against that.
You know perfectly well my position on that.
I just wanted to bring it out again in case some people weren't familiar with your position.
Yes. Let's float that one.
Ann, for those of you who are wondering, Ann thinks Susan B. Anthony is one of the more overrated people in American history. Let's leave it at that, right?
Technically a terrorist.
Ann, I was. Did you see the hearing last week? The Senate confirmation hearings for this woman who's been nominated for the appeals court in Seventh Circuit.
Oh my gosh! I tweeted about it. I didn't see it, but I saw the reports. Apparently, we do have a religious test for higher office. You cannot be a Catholic.
Yeah, it was really amazing. I don't know who was more offensive, Dick Durbin, who is Catholic, or Diane Feinstein, who isn't Catholic. But they were both. They were both pretty offensive.
I was disappointed with Di-Fi because she's and don't laugh at this expression, but she's one of the smartest Democrats. She's always one of the ones I've liked the most. And
as I just described, I just described Gardner that way in New Hampshire, so we've both made made that error. Okay.
But no, I mean it really is outrageous, and I know this is an easy thing to do, but oh boy, can you imagine if she had said the same thing about a Jewish candidate? Oh boy.
How about a Muslim?
Yeah, that wouldn't be good, but I think Jewish would get you in a lot more trouble.
Here she said, did you see?
And also, I know a lot more Jewish lawyers. Perhaps that's why it occurs to me.
Father Jenkins, who's the president of Notre Dame, and I believe he's the one who's, he's not exactly a conservative himself, judging by the recent commencement speakers at Notre Dame. He sent a letter to Senator Feinstein. It was. Have you heard that?
No.
I write, the Wall Street Journal reprinted the entire letter today as an editorial. I write to express my confidence in her, meaning Amy Coney Barrett, her competence and character and deep concern at your line of questioning. She talks about how dogma lives loudly in her. That's what Diane Feinstein said. Dogma lives
in
loudly.
Her whole life. Yeah. It's part of your being.
I am one in whose heart dogma lives loudly, as it has for centuries in the lives of many Americans, some of whom have given their lives in service to this nation. Indeed, it lived loudly in the hearts of those who founded our nation as one where citizens could practice their faith freely and without apology. It is chilling to hear from a United States Senator that this might now disqualify someone from service as a federal judge. Pretty good letter, wouldn't you say?
That is a good letter, and you're right. No one associated with Notre Dame could be confused for a conservative. As this guy, Jay Burton, I don't know if you follow him, but you should if you don't, hilarious anonymous person on Twitter, he always points out, and it's totally true, all of our founding fathers and basically all of our American heroes up until, about 50 years ago, by today's standards would be considered white supremacist Nazis.
I know. It's funny, Ann, too. I was, going back to last year's campaign, I was, I wrote a column about this hearing. And so I went back and I got the sound cut from the Al Smith dinner last year when Trump said...
Yeah, I noticed you're playing... I'm sorry to interrupt. You're playing the Al Smith dinner. That was like Trump's worst appearance ever. Though I must say, when you were playing at the beginning of the program, I was laughing.
But when he says tonight Hillary's here pretending not to hate Catholics, I thought isn't that a great line?
That was unbelievably nasty. That's not how these dinners are supposed to go. That was Trump's worst appearance. I can't believe you see this
I disagree, Ann. I thought it was great. I loved his jokes.
But, what I was going to say is, we go back to the way the fake news was reported last year, because they had John Roberts on reporting on that night. And he said, well, it's interesting that he would say that about Hillary Clinton, that unfortunate thing, because Hillary Clinton is ahead in the polls among Catholics 54-35. Really?
Well, okay, really? Redeem your people, Howie. What was the final vote?
It was 52-45 for Donald Trump. Excellent. So they were only off by 25 points, the polls. 25 points, Ann. So we came through in the clutch.
Also today, I'm always in the middle of a sentence and suddenly it's the end of the interview, so I don't want it to be the end of the interview. Before I point out that it is, of course, the anniversary of 9/11, which never would have happened but for our giving visas to people who never should have been admitted to this country, because diversity is a strength.
Yes, the diversity lottery. Thank you, Ted Kennedy, and all the rest of the Democrats. Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us. And I'm sorry, Michael. I'm sorry, Michael Daley didn't get his wish, and all of our houses weren't destroyed. But that's the way it works out sometimes, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Ann. Ann Coulter, author of "In Trump We Trust." I'm Howie Carr.